Great. Thank you, everybody. And thanks to the conference organizers for giving me a chance to present. My name is Ave Owen. I'm a PhD student at King Mongkut's University of Technology, Thonburi, but the research I'll present today is actually research conducted as part of my master's degree in Project Dragonfly through Miami University. And it looks at the role of alternative crop cultivation in promoting human-elephant coexistence through a multidisciplinary lens. So the study takes place in Ruam Thai village in Koibri district in Prachuap Khiri Khan province in Thailand. I've lived in the area for the last 6 years, studying the wild elephant population in Koibri National Park, where Ruam Thai village sits on the border of. The national park is home to about 300 wild elephants and nearly 10% of Thailand's remaining wild elephant population. The majority of the community members earn their main source of income from pineapple cultivation. And pineapple, being a very sweet and fragrant crop, attracts wild elephants out of the national park into human-dominated agricultural landscapes on a nightly basis, which results in economic loss and crop and property damage and other psychosocial consequences. So before I dive into the methods and the study goals, I want to share just a few results from the study to kind of paint a picture and set the scene for what human-elephant coexistence looks like in this area. So 91% of people in this community currently experience negative consequences as a result of their proximity to elephants. 77% feel they cannot coexist with wild elephants, and nearly half of the people in this community are encountering elephants at least once per week in their farm. In addition, other challenges faced by community members who are cultivating pineapple include the rising price of chemical fertilizers, herbicides, and other sprays required to get pineapple through its cultivation cycle. Market instability sees 70% increases and decreases in the pineapple price, leaving farmers in a precarious position, not knowing how much they'll get per kilogram when it's time to sell. And finally, the sustained exposure of farmers and their land to agrochemicals is another concern for people in this area. Further, 70% of people experience worry or stress when traveling to or from their farm to guard their crops at night when elephants most frequently come out of the national park and forage on crops. 59% experience lack of sleep, and 32% are reporting social isolation from having to leave their friends, their family, and go into a small hut on their farm and wait for elephants to come throughout the night. So we wanted to investigate whether a transition from pineapple to an alternative crop species that would be less palatable to elephants could promote human-elephant coexistence in this area. And we sought to assess this through a multidisciplinary lens. So firstly, in an ecological context, we wanted to understand the susceptibility of various crop species to elephant-caused damage, to analyze the profitability of those alternative crops compared to the conventionally grown pineapple, understand the barriers and motivators perceived by farmers when considering alternative crop cultivation, and finally, bringing it all together, analyzing the ecological, economic, and social factors that shape the profile of these pioneer farmers who are most interested in transitioning. So we started the study in a community-based and participatory way. We hosted 20 local farmers for a participatory action research workshop where they gathered to assess what are the criteria of a crop species that would be a suitable replacement for pineapple. During that workshop, local people attested and decided that in addition to being resistant to elephants or not palatable to elephants, it also had to be a crop that could grow and thrive in this drought-prone climate, and also one that had a diverse market value, had a high market cost, and could be sold to multiple strains, not just a single income. The local people that joined this workshop also designed the research plot. They selected the crop species that would tick 1, 2, or 3 of those criteria. They assigned research leaders and data collecting pioneers for it who would come out and join the data collection. And they also set research questions and hypotheses. So these are the plots that the community members designed. The plot on the left, this 2020 plot, is where we planted ginger, turmeric, lemongrass, corunda, citronella, galangal, chili, lime, mulberry, and kaffir lime in equally sized subplots within one full farm. We planted pineapple in the closest and furthest subplot from the national park as a research control to understand how elephants interacted with these alternative crops in comparison to pineapple. Now, That first plot was assessed throughout a 22-month study period, and it was directly on the border of the national park. Now, halfway into that study, at the next rainy season, the community members who were collecting data on a monthly basis noticed that two crop species, lemongrass and citronella, were faring the best in both the drought-prone climate and in their resistance to elephants. So we replicated this study with just lemongrass and citronella in 5 new plots in 2021 and studied them for another year, with the study ending at the same time. So community members were involved in data collection, surveying the height, the health, the type of damage, and the number of individual crops eliminated by elephants in each subplot. We also monitored the frequency that elephants approached, entered, and caused damage to the crops in the plot on a nightly basis. We conducted semi-structured interviews with 71 pineapple farmers to understand the economics of pineapple cultivation, to truly understand if a replacement species can be grown, what's kind of what is the profitability that it's up against. So we asked farmers about the revenue that they gained from pineapple, their investment costs into planting, maintenance, setting deterrents to stop elephants from coming into their farms, and harvest itself. Further from that, we also deducted the elephant-caused crop damage, the amount of money that the farmers lost in their most recent crop cycle, so as to understand the profitability of pineapple cultivation. Further, we conducted household surveys with 239 farmers in the area to assess their perceptions and attitudes towards elephants and the idea of alternative crop cultivation. From that, we also were able to discern the barriers and motivators perceived by farmers when considering a transition to alternative crops. And just for statistical analysis, we used the binomial logistic regression analysis to understand which factors were the most influential for the farmers who are most interested in alternative crop cultivation. So farmers entered the plot, elephants entered the plot quite a bit throughout the study. You can see from these photos some elephant footsteps walking around the alternative crops or stepping just beside or over them, but not interacting or damaging the lemongrass, mulberry, or citronella that's pictured here. In total, in that 2020 test plot with the 10 experimental species, elephants entered the plot roughly 1/3 of the nights throughout the study period. However, they only caused damage, they approached on 1/3, they entered at about 15% of them, but they only caused damage about 5.8% of those nights. And that's including the nights during which pineapple was still present in the plot as a research control. Then kind of moving on to some of the results, we found that elephants eliminated 96.5% of the pineapple in the first 2 months of the 22-month study period. They had eliminated all 100% after 11 months. Now, we did lose some alternative crops to elephant trampling, 5.2%, the most for kaffir lime, a little bit for chili, a little bit for mulberry. And then in those 2021 test plots that just had lemongrass and citronella with pineapple side by side as a research control, we lost less than 2% of the lemongrass and citronella and over 80% of the pineapple. What's interesting is that no consumption or uprooting of any alternative crop species was recorded in the study period. And the frequency that elephants approached, entered, and caused damage in the plot significantly decreased after pineapple was fully eliminated. So it really does tell us that when pineapple was present, an attractive crop was present, elephants are still going to approach, enter, and cause damage, but a full transition to a non-palatable or alternative crop could significantly decrease elimination. This just helps to visualize that a little bit. Pineapple was fully eliminated by elephants, and some other crops, while they were eliminated only minimally by elephants, like mulberry, kaffir lime, and chili, elimination by environmental threats, including drought, insect predation, and insect-transmitted diseases, were responsible for the crop elimination of several species quite a bit. However, you can see lemongrass and citronella there at the bottom, which fared fairly well in both elephants and environmental threats. So based on that participatory action research workshop where local people assessed the criteria by which they wanted a suitable replacement crop to be assessed, we assessed these alternative crops and how suitable they were in both ecological, social, and economic perspectives. And lemongrass and citronella fared the best in that community-based scoring system as well. In terms of economic results, almost half of the pineapple farmers reported higher expenses than revenue, which means that these farmers are cultivating pineapple, almost half of them are cultivating at an economic loss overall. Now, that's because the amount that they earn remains consistent, but the maintenance costs, so the costs of chemical fertilizers and herbicides, is ever increasing. So the investment costs has increased so much, but the return is still standard. Further, lemongrass and citronella did quite well comparatively because they have a shorter crop cycle. They can be harvested in half the time of pineapple, and two forms of yield can be sold. So both the leaf yield and the stalk yield can be sold. Throughout this process, community members expressed interest in harvesting essential oils to increase the marketability and the financial viability of alternative crop cultivation. Lemongrass essential oil is valuable in aromatherapy, and citronella essential oil is used in a variety of mosquito repellent products, including candles and natural sprays. In terms of our social results, we found that half of the household survey participants were interested in alternative crop planting, and many of them were interested in a transition so as to reduce the stress and worry that they experience. Further, they were also motivated by not wanting to spend time or money on night guarding and just not wanting to be in conflict with elephants. Now, while half of the participants, the survey respondents, were interested in alternative crop planting, many of them reported a lack of a viable market for alternative crop yield as the main barrier. Also, the belief that elephants will trample and uproot alternative crops and that alternative crops would not withstand this drought-prone climate. Further, moving on, in terms of that early adopter profile, so out of this whole community, the population of Ruam Thai village is roughly 2,000 people. Now, there's a small group of people we identified through our survey results as like pioneers or ideal early adopters. And they were motivated to try alternative crop planting by the frequency that elephants visit their farms, by experiencing both negative consequences from elephants and positive benefits from elephants. And people who feel they were able to coexist with elephants were more likely to be interested in adopting alternative crop cultivation. This was really interesting because it taught us that people are not motivated to change their behavior by just one factor or just by negative experiences, but by earning benefits from elephants and feeling able to coexist with elephants. That also motivated behavior change to this nature-based solution. So just to wrap up, for the ecological, economic, and social points that we've just discussed, we found that there was much less trampling than expected by farmers who hypothesized in that participatory workshop at the start of the study that trampling would actually equate to just as much damage as consumption. So even though the elephants wouldn't eat alternative crops, they would trample them so much that the damage would be comparable between the species. And we found that that was absolutely not the case, with pineapple being fully eliminated and less than 6% of any alternative crop being trampled, some crops not being trampled at all. Now, even after the palatable pineapple was eliminated from the study site, we found that elephants still entered the plots. So that tells us alternative crops are not deterrent by nature. They don't have a repellent effect, but rather they disincentivize the presence of elephants in agricultural landscape, and they decrease the economic losses that farmers sustain if and when elephants do enter their plots. We also, this brings home that we need to find species that are less attractive, but also resilient to environmental threats. We really didn't anticipate how much loss we would experience from drought, insect-transmitted diseases, and invertebrate predation as well. So the species has to be suitable in all of these kind of dimensions. And long-term monitoring and replication is needed to truly understand which species are ecologically suitable. Further, for economics, even though many of these farmers are cultivating pineapple at an economic loss because so much of their investment costs have increased, that the guaranteed market for pineapple still trumps the potential profitability of another species. This tells us that there's very low tolerance for risk in this community, and that switching to a new species just might not be viable. Even if pineapple is not earning a high income, the guaranteed market of local factories is still the most attractive thing about cultivating it. And further, creating value-added products can increase the profitability of alternative crop species. Finally, in terms of the social dimensions, as I mentioned, early adopters are motivated by both positive and negative experiences with elephants, and solutions that create human-elephant coexistence should prioritize not only decreasing the consequences that people experience from elephants, but also generating benefits. And that includes economic benefits, social, cultural, historical, all different kinds of benefits that local people can get from their proximity to elephants so as to increase their ability to coexist. Finally, before I wrap up, I just want to mention 2 community enterprises that were created. So local people, in their effort to make alternative crop planting financially viable, the Tom Yum Project, which is named after the Thai Tom Yum soup, which is made with many of the ingredients that were grown in this study, galangal, kaffir lime, lemongrass, and chili. The local people said, if we grow these alternative crops, we can make Tom Yum soup every day. We'll always have an ingredient yield in stock. And they were taking these yields to make lemongrass soap, citronella candles, ginger teas, and they attended many different workshops and conferences to be able to develop these products, which are now for sale on consignment within Thailand. And we're working on getting FDA approval to be able to sell them internationally as well. Further, the Khoibury Fair Trade Community Enterprise is a group of 12 pioneer farmers that joined together in a group to coordinate their alternative crop planting efforts so that they would plant and harvest at the same time to be able to decrease the transport costs, and also just share in experiences and how to increase yield, how to deal with these insect-transmitted diseases. And the group meets once per month to further their alternative crop planting work. So finally, just recommendations for other organizations or communities looking to implement this is that the community-based and participatory approach was essential to this project getting off the ground and truly identifying the factors that would allow us to understand which species are most suitable for an alternative crop project. Conducting local crop trials is essential. Even though lemongrass and citronella were the most suitable or scored the highest in this community, human-elephant conflict and coexistence exists in 13 range countries in Asia, and other countries might have other economic, social, and ecological experiences that would make local crop trials more important for their sites. And finally, multidisciplinary collaborations can help us to understand not only which species are most suitable, but how to get them into a viable economic standpoint so that community members can truly lead the way in this alternative crop planting, and that the implementation of this solution can be sustainable in the long term. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you to the organizers again, and you can contact me at the email listed there. Thanks so much.